Joining us right now to talk about, in particular, the IRS scandal is Congressman Diane Black, 6th District, great state of Tennessee, member of the Ways and Means and Budget Committees in the House. And Congressman, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be with you.
Well, great to have you. All right, I don't know if you got a chance to see the press conference today. If you didn't, it was more of what took place yesterday or last night when the president announced the resignation of Stephen Miller, the acting director of the IRS. What's your take on what has been done so far to, pursue this matter, or how the president has reacted?
Well, I was listening in, and I did hear the president talk about he has done what he thought was the beginning, and that was to ask for the resignation of the acting commissioner, as if that is going to make a difference. We need to get to the bottom of this. There's so much more to be known about what has happened over at the IRS. And, the American people were already distrustful of the IRS, and this certainly has not helped it. And we need to make sure that we get to the bottom of who knew, when they knew, what did they do, what action did they take, and what have they put into place to keep this from ever happening again. All those questions are yet to be answered.
Now, I want you to hear something that the president said both yesterday and then he repeated it today. This is actually from yesterday, almost making it sound like these mistakes, as he referred to them, they're almost allowable and not surprising because the laws are just so darn confusing. How are these poor IRS agents supposed to know what to do? Give a listen.
And we're going to have to make sure that the laws are clear so that we can have confidence that they are enforced in a fair and impartial way, and that there's not too much ambiguity surrounding these laws.
So in other words,
that's what I expect. That's what the American people deserve, and that's what we're going to do.
All right. So in other words, maybe the IRS agents really don't know what the laws are. Maybe they're just so ambiguous that they can't be held accountable.
That's so ludicrous. I just want to laugh.
Well, go ahead.
Honest to goodness. Now, how in the world can we ever mix up the law and their ambiguity, according to the president, with this very intentful action of targeting these groups? This is not anything about a confusion in the law. It's about a very targeted effort to make sure that those that are opposing the views of the White House don't get attention. Furthermore, that their information would even be distributed and used by their own progressive organizations. So
right.
I cannot believe sometimes that the president says what he does and he gets away with it. We've got to hold him accountable.
Well, against that backdrop, as you correctly point out, the single biggest player in Obamacare is going to be this very same IRS. And the fact that we now know what we know, we've suspected what we've suspected, but we now know what we know. Are you calling for the Congress to not fund 1 cent for the IRS to participate in Obamacare, which would in effect basically destroy the bill, or what would you like to see happen?
Well, first of all, I'd like to repeal the entire bill, and we're going to vote on that again
today.
This is my third time of voting on it, but I'll vote on it again today to say this is a bad choice that has been made by previous Congresses. I wasn't here when that choice was made. But repealing the entire thing would be the absolute best that we could do for the American people. And then short of that, we have to ensure that before moving forward with people giving more personal information to the IRS, that we are given assurances, absolute assurances, that there is a protection of their very personal information. I am working on a bill now. I don't have all the pieces together. Probably be hearing about it in the next day or so, to protect that very personal information. Now, here's the other thing. As we're talking, a lot of folks do not know this, but the government bureaucrats are building the Federal Data Services Hub. And this is a database that actually includes information from 5 different agencies, from IRS, HHS, Social Security, Homeland Security, and DOJ. And all this will be put into one big database, and this will be the most information that the government has ever had in one place about our personal information. And so my bill not only addresses currently what's happening in the IRS, but also looks at those other agencies to make sure that we are protecting the American people's personal information.
We're talking to Congressman Diane Black. She is a member of the House Ways and Means Subcommittee on Oversight. Let me ask you this, kind of alluding back to what I talked about, the funding of it. I mean, is it a fait accompli, or does the Congress have to, approve the funds that would go to the IRS for their participation in Obamacare? And being that there's a Republican House, can they stop that?
Well, this has been a lot of discussion about why can we not just defund Obamacare, and therefore it would not actually take place if we defunded it. The Democrats were very smart in the way they wrote that bill. Most of that bill and all the funding to it is in the mandatory side. And you cannot change the funding for a mandatory program unless you change law. So they didn't leave it on the discretionary side to give Congress an ability to be able to fund it or not fund it year to year. They put it on a mandatory side, which is why it is so difficult to dismantle this darn thing. Because, for instance, let's take the medical device tax. If we were to repeal the medical device tax, we've got to find the hole to fill, because that is figured into the budget on the mandatory side. And this is the real complication of the mandatory and discretionary spending that a lot of people, and frankly, I really didn't understand it fully before I came to Congress, is that when we set a budget on a yearly basis, that's on discretionary programs. Much of Obamacare is on the mandatory side. So there are very few things that we can do to defund. Now, the president did ask for more IRS agents in order to be able to implement this, and we did not give him that money in the continuing resolution, so we did short him on those dollars that he wanted for implementation. But so much of this is on the mandatory side. It makes it very difficult. It ties our hands. Yeah, no, okay. Well, you explained it very, very well. I got one more for you. Were you? Did you notice while listening to the president when he was asked whether or not he knew anything about what was going on with the IRS, he kind of sidestepped that by saying he did not know about the audit. Until a certain time, but he really never answered the question. I think he was very careful in his wording. Do you think it's possible that what you and I have heard about for years, that the President of the United States had no idea was going on, especially when we know now that the IRS denied tax-exempt status to pro-lifers on behalf of Planned Parenthood. They were giving information, as you said, to progressive groups who then used that against supporters of Romney. I mean, at every level here, pro-Israel groups, patriot groups, Tea Party groups. Do you think it's possible the president had no idea what was going on? Well, first, let me say this. Anytime the president speaks, you've got to be suspicious and listen very carefully, because he is so measured in what he says. He doesn't want his fingerprints on anything, and he doesn't want, if later on his fingerprints are found, that he cannot wiggle out of it in some way. So you do have to watch very carefully the manner in which he talks about something, how he measures his words. But here's the other thing that I've been saying. Regardless of the fact of whether he says he knew about it or not, I say, is it not shameful that the leader of our country is not taking responsibility for this? Because if you have 400 applications that are laying on a desk in the IRS for 2 years, why are the people who are the managers not asking a productivity question? I would be asking the folks that were working under me, why is there such a backlog? What's going on here? And Ms. Lerner even admitted that she did address this at one point in time when she realized that they had set some criteria up that shouldn't be there. But why was that not followed up on? A year later, there's still not a follow-up to find out, why are you not allowing this stuff to move forward? Have I not told you you can't use that criteria? Whatever. The management on this is horrible. Yeah. It's horrible. Yeah, and it just doesn't bode well, of course, as if healthcare weren't a mess in and of itself. It just doesn't bode well for for their participation in that. Congressman, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back. Oh, always. Thank you for having me. Thank you. That's Congressman Diane Black, 6th Congressional District, the great state of Tennessee, member of the House Ways and Means Committee.